The Australian Grand Prix was probably the sloppiest weekend for MotoGP fantasy ever, and I am totally here for it. Welcome back to I Told You So Tuesday, where we talk about my pre-race predictions and how they fared as it pertains to my MotoGP fantasy team. And of course, this week we're talking about Australia. But before we dig into everything, if you could please like, follow, share, subscribe, mash all the buttons so you get all the MotoGP content you could possibly imagine. And please remember, we respond to all the comments, so come talk some MotoGP with us. So going into this weekend in MotoGP fantasy, everyone across the board had a little bit of a conundrum. How do you replace Marc Marquez on your fantasy team? Now, my fantasy team was doubly screwed, triply screwed, all the way screwed in all sorts of ways. Because last week I made kind of a gamble going with Honda, going with Luca Marini, trying to do a few things that were against the grain to see if I could eke out a few points against the people ahead of me. And it kind of worked out, it kind of didn't. It was a pretty low scoring points weekend, and I stayed in fourth place, barely fending off the guy nipping at my heels. So I go into this weekend still carrying Luca Marini and Honda as my team. Now that wouldn't be so bad, but I'm also carrying Marc Marquez and Marco Bezzecchi, who had 2 long lap penalties on Sunday's Grand Prix. And if you don't know, in MotoGP fantasy, you can only make 2 trades per week. And there were a lot of people I wanted to offload on my team. That was said terribly. Now, obviously, I have to take Marc Marquez off the roster because he's going to score no points. So the real question was who to replace him with. Now, in my mind, when I'm looking at Friday practice, the people I was thinking about replacing Marc Marquez with, and this is a gold tier rider, this means a lot of points if the rider can actually come through and do really well. The riders I was kind of looking at, kind of trying to figure out who could go well at Australia. Now, we all know Johann Zarco won his first ever race in Australia. I didn't have a lot of faith in him. I didn't have a lot of faith in hometown hero Jack Miller, even though he did qualify really well. On Friday, he topped the first practice session, so I was looking at him, but I just still don't have a lot of faith in Jack Miller in a Sunday Grand Prix, and at that point, I think I told you so. Unfortunately for Jack, he crashes out of the main Grand Prix. So devastated. If you've seen the footage of him after that crash, he was beside himself. He was very upset with himself. So much potential just thrown down the road into the gravel at his home race. I felt really bad for the guy. So I'm not looking at Jack. I'm not really looking at Johann Zarco. I was looking at Fabio Di Giannantonio. And I thought that maybe he could be there, but he didn't really look comfortable at Friday practice. We've seen how that GP25 can struggle. It's super inconsistent. I never know one weekend or the other who's coming to the front. Is it Pecco Bagnaia going to have a great weekend or a nowhere weekend? I kind of saw that coming because Pecco was nowhere on my radar for this week in MotoGP Fantasy. I wasn't going there, not after Indonesia. I didn't have a good feeling about him in Phillip Island, and I was absolutely right. I told you so. Didn't expect it was that bad, but I told you so. But with Fabio Di Giannantonio, I did not see that Sunday performance coming at all. I passed over Fabio Di Giannantonio, even though I really, really like him as a rider. He's on the Ducati, and he's really good at this track. But at 10th place qualifying, and obviously we pick our lineups before qualifying, looking through practice, wasn't anywhere. 10th place qualifying, I was sitting kind of pretty with my choice going away from him. But then on Sunday, he just comes through and gets up on the podium in the Grand Prix. So that's what I probably should have done. I didn't see that coming. I can't say I told you so. What I did do to replace Marc Marquez is I went a little bit out on a limb and picked Fabio Quartararo because I expected the Yamaha to go well, especially when we looked at practice. It's a fast-flowing track, a high corner speed track, and I thought maybe, even if Fabio didn't have a wonderful Grand Prix weekend, overall, he would have okay weekend because he's going to qualify well. Did I expect him to break the lap record and go straight to pole position? Yeah, I kind of did. I mean, we saw the lap times Bez was doing on Friday, and I was a little bit worried, but Fabio goes ahead and throws in a crazy lap. I can't say I saw a pole position coming, but I knew I was going to score points with Fabio for the qualifying position. And then the race, if he could just finish in the top 5, that would have been a great weekend for me. It was not to be. The Yamaha in race trim just looks awful. There's no other way to say it. It looks freaking awful. These bikes go nothing but backwards, or in Jack Miller's case, right off the track. Fabio just doesn't look comfortable racing this bike in a crowd. He's vulnerable down the straights. He's vulnerable in the corners. He's vulnerable under braking. It's just really tough times over there at Yamaha to win a race. One lap speed, they seem to have it figured out, especially on a track that's as fast and flowing as Phillip Island. So I can say I have told you so with Fabio Quartararo. He did score me some points, but not really anything to write home about. So here's my next problem. I have Luca Marini sitting there, I have Honda sitting there, and I have Marco Bezzecchi with 2 long lap penalties sitting on my team, and I can only offload one of those 3. So who do I offload? Do I offload Bez? He doesn't have a penalty to the sprint, so he can do well, score me points in the sprint, and then hopefully come back through. So I kept Bezzecchi. I'm just going to say it right now. I kept Bezzecchi. I absolutely told you so. He was going to have a monster weekend, even with that double long lap penalty. He comes back through to the podium. I saw it coming. The speed was undeniable. The confidence is undeniable. And the Aprilia domination in Phillip Island is absolutely undeniable. I said yesterday in the podcast, I think Aprilia has turned a corner with that motorcycle. We've got riders on it who are really gelling with the bike, and I thought maybe he could come back and finish top 5. He does me one better, gets himself on the podium. I did never think he was going to race win, was out of the question. I mean, I think that's awesome story. If you could do 2 long lap penalties and still win the race, that's kind of Moto 3 stuff we're talking about. I thought that was a little out of his grasp, but I did think he could claw back some points on that Sunday Grand Prix, enough that the other people I was looking at weren't really enough to make me move him off my team. I was looking at Alex Marquez. I just didn't think he would really move the needle that much for me in the fantasy points overall. And sticking with Bez was the right move. I absolutely told you so. And I already have Pedro Acosta as my other silver tier rider. So there we go. I make the move. I stay with Bezzecchi. So now I have 2 choices. Do I get rid of Luca Marini, or do I try to switch out my team and get the max points for whatever team I'm running? And what I did there is I got rid of HRC and I went with Gresini Racing Ducati, because I thought maybe Aldeguer and Alex Marquez could move up the ranks enough to score points between the 2 of them. And for the most part, I think I told you so there. Decent week for Gresini. As I looked across at all of the teams, both riders, who are 2 riders that were scoring more points than these guys, they kind of were the best option. Everyone else kind of had one rider that was going to score a heap of points, and then one rider that just is kind of nowhere. So I kind of went with the safer option because I thought both of those guys would do okay. And they did okay. Now, speaking of doing okay, Luca Marini. Again, I wished he was a little closer to the front in the sprint, a little closer to the front in qualifying, and a little bit closer to the front in the main Grand Prix. But it is what it is. Overall, I scored the exact same points as the guy in 5th place behind me. I'm sorry, which keeps me in 4th, making no progress to 3rd points. I think I gained 4 points total to the 3rd place in front of me. So it wasn't a fantastic weekend in the MotoGP fantasy team, but it was a weekend where I basically held station and made enough good moves. Would have been a better weekend if I chose the right Fabio, but alas, you can't make all the moves. Otherwise, what's the fun in that? I think this last weekend was a really fun time in Australia. Obviously, it sucks that Marc Marquez isn't there, but the upside, always looking for an upside, the upside of Marc Marquez not being there is it's giving other people an opportunity to run at the front. It's giving other people an opportunity to be in Q2, to qualify in the front row and win races. Yes, if Marc's not there, there's going to be opportunities, more opportunities for other riders to win races. And who saw Ralph Fernandez winning a race? Getting on the podium in a sprint, the short form, plucky, hard fought, doing a good job at a main Grand Prix. I don't think any of us saw him really keeping pace and actually dominating that race, managing the tires all the way to the end. He didn't pull a Jorge Martin and blow the tires out with 5 laps to go. Did an absolutely phenomenal job. I didn't see that coming. I think that's massively entertaining. You all know how much I love the unpredictability that the flyaways give us. Now we have the unpredictability of Marc Marquez not being there for the flyaways, which makes them all even crazier. And I can't wait for Malaysia. Let's keep it going. Let's have 3 amazing weekends in a row. First-time winner in Aldeguer, first-time winner in Ralph Fernandez. Are we going to see another first-time winner in Malaysia? Could it be Pedro Acosta? If it is, you heard it here first. And I'll say I told you so like hell if that happens next week. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Please join me again next week, Monday morning MotoGP, and I told you so Tuesday, right after the Malaysian Grand Prix. Thank you so much for watching.